Hello everyone, and welcome to the first game of the first season of the Knights of the Square Table's Thundercup Blood Bowl League. As you can see here, my team is Longdrong Slayer Passers, named after the Dogs of War Regiments of Renown Longdrong Slayer Pirates. And I'm up against my friend Brook Manhotep and his Da Sneaky Moons Goblins. Yeah, recently my friend who goes by Tim Hotep decided to get all the members of the Knights of the Square Table group, which we have our own website and everything. He got us all Blood Bowl Legendary Edition as an early Christmas present. So, and we set up our own league and we decided to play some games. We're at the moment on Season 2, but right now, only now have I had time to record audio and upload the footage I recorded for the first season. As you see, we're fighting at a nice Nordic dwarven place.
It certainly looks as though it will be an interesting game.
Hi everybody! I just can't wait for things to get underway. The expectation is killing me. There's such a difference between the level of the two teams. You've got to be slightly worried.
Now, dwarves weren't my first choice. I very almost went with ogres. I had a team called Ludgrub's Grubluggers. Basically, they lug around grub, which they then eat, including balls and noblars and other things. But I don't know, I played a couple practice games against my friend Eric, and basically I got creamed, and I wasn't a big fan of the whole bonehead rule, where basically each turn there's 1 in a 6 chance that your ogres, after you tell them to do stuff, so you might waste your blitz on them, and then they just... Anyways, bonehead makes them not do anything, and the action is wasted as if it had been used. So, you know, that can be a bit annoying. And the dwarves are actually a really strong team. They're all very hard to beat in a block, because even though they're only strength 3, whereas ogres are strength 5 and chaos are strength 4, they all have block, almost all of them. And actually, the runners can move fairly fast, movement 6, which offsets, you know, a lot of people complain about their short movement, but the runners can move fine if you give them the balls. And blitzers, I think, can move 5 as well.
According to Spike Magazine, the number one all-time worst player award was Specky McGrone.
Who?
A goblin who played only 1 season.
Can you believe it?
30 fumbles in a season, averaging more than 2 per match, including a record 9 fumbles in his last match.
Yes, the goblins, of course.
What do you expect?
Goblins, of course, aren't as good in the direct combat department, and for that they have a couple trolls to help, but mostly they rely on sneaky tricks and forbidden weapons. Things like, as you see there's a guy with a bomb, and a guy on a giant pogo stick who I guess can jump over other players. And a guy with a chainsaw, and some very fun stuff will happen with him shortly. I also have a secret weapon on my team, the Death Roller, or Def Rolla as the orcs would call it, in Warhammer 40k. It's that giant steamroller with spikes all over it. I like to joke that the only reason it's allowed is because I say that my character is in a wheelchair. So I'm like, yeah, you can't kick him off, that's his wheelchair. You know?
And they're off!
Yeah, like he lost his he got his spine broken when an ogre tackled him, you know? You have to give him props for still trying to play and for having the ingenuity to build this steam-powered wheelchair to help him play.
Corruption so widespread that the Referees Guild has set up rules concerning where, when, and how one can accept a bribe.
Under an agreement signed last season, the clubs are not allowed to offer less than the goblin.
Oh, yep, that's another secret weapon there, the Goblin Fanatic. which I can't remember. I'll probably mouse over him at some point and he'll show, but he has lots of strength. Like, I think he's one of the strongest units in the game. But all secret weapons, you can only use them for one drive, so one attempt to get the ball. If the ball gets in the end zone, the drive's over. I think also no one gets the goal and it goes to halftime, the drive's over. At that point, all the secret weapons are kicked off the field, regardless of how much you try to bribe the rep.
Ball is caught. What luck?
Oh, and
This player was waving the arms about
he
to
tossed
get
me a bomb, and I thought it was a ball at this point, so I didn't even know what I was doing. So I was just like, give it to that guy. You can have the ball, right?
That was a hospital pass.
And there, Rag the Oarsman unfortunately knocks down Skurek Sea Scourge. So as I mentioned before, this group is named after back when they had Dogs of War as an army in Warhammer. You should probably say, first of all, if you don't know much about Blood Bowl, this is fantasy football, basically trying to get the football to the end zone, but unlike normal fantasy football, which is just making a normal football team and, you know, having people run around, this is actual, like, Tolkienesque fantasy with, ooh, and I just got chainsawed. But anyways, this is Tolkienesque fantasy with, you know, goblins and dwarves, hobbits and elves, that sort of thing. So it adds, you know, it's literally fantasy football, and I find that kind of cool. But it's based in the Warhammer fantasy setting, so again, more or less Tolkien-esque. Again, if you don't know about it, Warhammer is a miniatures game where you build, paint, assemble armies, and then you have them fight against one another on a tabletop. And I'm not very good at the actual game, but I do very much love the models, and I love customizing them and making my own and modifying them. And there I think he just tried to dodge away from me, which is usually a very bad idea in this game, unless you're a goblin. But unfortunately that was a troll on the goblin team. Halflings might be good at dodging too, and skinks. But anyways, yes, so in the Warhammer game, I actually play Warriors of Chaos, which is sort of a Viking, demon-worshipping Vikings, basically, who live in the far north where a portal torn in the fabric of space and time allows demons and magic to flow into the world. But this magic also mutates them, so anyways, that's the army I play on the tabletop. But we already had, I think, by the time I signed up, we already had 3 people playing them, and we were trying to each play a different team, because there's 20 different teams in this, right? So I think one person was playing normal Chaos, one was playing Nurgle Chaos on this, and one person was playing Nords, which again are Vikings, so they're without the Chaos mutations, but same idea. And so I decided to try something new. As I said, I was going to do Ogres. I also made tons of other teams. I made an Amazon team named Freya's Fatales. Oh, and am I... Okay, damn it, that's just going to go there. Anyways, I made a... oh, and everyone on that Freya's Fatales team, I named them all individually, like they... I had them named after, like, Uriel and Tisiphone and the other... all the Furies and whatnot. Okay, here's important. Because of my block skill... I rolled a both down result, which would normally mean, you know, we headbutt and both players go down, mine and his. But because most of the dwarves have block, what block does is it ignores the both down for whoever has block. So I mean, if we both had block and I rolled both down, nothing would happen. But because we had both down, it ignored the block on my guy. It ignored the knockdown effect on my guy, but not on the guy with the chainsaw. And unfortunately, the guy with the chainsaw got badly injured because he kind of landed on his own blade, which is not something you want to be doing. Okay, and here's Aklak the Cannon, his death roller. Now, I think I didn't really know this at the time, but I think my strategy now is more focused on the weak guys, whereas at this point in time I was just trying to take out the biggest threat, so I would focus all my guys on surrounding and killing one thing, and it usually wouldn't even work because, you know, trolls have what, strength 5, strength 6, the average dwarf has strength 3. I should mention though that you get bonus strength for every guy helping, so if you have a guy who's adjacent to the enemy that you're attacking and not adjacent to any other enemies, then he gives the guy who's attacking a +1 strength bonus. But unfortunately, I think most of my guys there are adjacent to other enemies, so they didn't really give them any bonus. Or at least, I don't know.
You remember the 2503 season, which saw the retirement of one of Blood Bowl's favorite killers? Nobler Blackwood, who after 8 great seasons finally hung up his chainsaw.
It lopped off more heads than any other chainsaw in history, including a massive 14 decapitations in one match.
Anyways, again, for those who don't really understand the rules of the game, what I did there was actually, it's called going for it, where you can move up 1 or 2 extra spaces, more than your guy's normal movement, but for every space you move, there's a 1 in 6 chance, again you just roll a 6-sided die, that you fall over and then your turn ends. So it's not something you want to do unless it's an emergency or unless you have a reroll. Rerolls are at the top left of the corner, as you see underneath my guy's finely mustachioed flag. There's a 1 out of 1, which means I have 1 reroll left. The Sneaky Moons have 3, but they've already used 1 at this point. So, and there's the Goblin Fanatic going, but he will get his, I can promise you that. I probably shouldn't be spoiling things. Thing is, I've already played through the whole season, so I know what happens. And I'm really just recording this after the fact.
When a game as physical as this, the player is really in the right place.
Exactly, it's really ugly. Just look at the fans, they're red hot. A majority of supporters reckon
Anyways,
that the league
what other teams
should
did
take
I
measures
make
to
for this? I
prevent
made
small minority of peaceful
Fenrir's
fans
Wolf
from
Paws,
launching a
my
massive genesis.
necromantic team with werewolves, who are actually the ones that I'm playing as currently in Season 2. I made Sindri's War Dancers or something. What elf team? Yeah, most of them I didn't even play as. It was just to see what the options were.
Ouch! That punch knocked his teeth down his throat.
Yes, Jim, that's never a
And
nice...
unfortunately my guy is knocked out, which means he can actually... And part of the reason I'm telling you all this is because I went into this video game never having played the tabletop version of Blood Bowl, which again is just with little models and rolling actual dice. So I didn't really know a lot about it, and frankly, they don't tell you a lot. Like the okay, and here I throw the bomb back at him, which is awesome. Yeah, they do have a tutorial in the game, but again, it doesn't tell you very much. It lets you play through a couple rounds. It tells you about turnovers, which, you know, if anyone falls, if anyone gets knocked down or fails to pick up the ball or any other big screw up, you just, your turn ends. To add insult to injury, almost. So, you know, if you, not only did you not pick up the ball, but now they have a chance to pick it up, and you can't try with someone else. And so usually you want to do all the actions that don't have a chance of causing a turnover, like moving your guys or standing them up. first, just in case you get a turnover. So, you know, as you see, I'm doing that right now. And again, trying to swarm the single big guy, whereas now I think my tactic is to, has evolved into just focusing on one person. Anyways, and normally you can move or throw a block at someone, which is basically attacking them, but it's called blocking, even though you're being on the offensive. And I think you're even referred to as the attacker when you block, whereas they're referred to as the defender. And it looks like Aklak is doing a blitz, and I killed the Goblin Fanatic, which is very unfortunate because he was probably the most expensive guy on Rukmanhotep's entire team. And yeah, he's dead. Can't use him for the rest of the season. Really big penalty to Brooke. I'm guessing he won't be uploading videos, so I'm going to tell you right now he doesn't do very well in the season because I kill or injure half of his team in this game. Get kind of lucky, he gets unlucky. And then also, goblins aren't that great of a team on their own because the special weapons, as you see, are very fickle. His chainsaw chainsawed his own guy. I threw his bomb back at his other Pogo Goblin and knocked him down. And even if they do get lucky on the first round, you know, they're removed from the game after the first drive, so it's you know, it's not very good. And the trolls are pretty good, but I guess I kind of just threw everyone I had against them, and that was enough to take them down. Not to mention I had a secret weapon of my own, which helped. Okay, and here is why you do not throw blocks until you've done other stuff, because there's a chance you'll just knock yourself down and do nothing to them. And you know, that can even happen on you know, it's rare. I think it's, you know, it's a 6-sided die. I think only one face of the die is, you know, attacker knocks himself down. But you know, it can always happen, even if you're the way it works is I think if you have the same strength as the enemy, including bonuses you get from other teammates helping you, and they get bonuses to their strength for other guys who are surrounding your attacker as well. So don't think you can just, like, you know, be surrounded by 10 guys and be like, whatever, I'll just take them out one at a time because it's my turn. Not that you can throw more than one block on your turn anyways, but, you know. Anyways, if you have the same strength, you get to roll 1 die. I think if you have more strength than them, you get to roll 2 dice, and if you have, like, double their strength, or maybe it's double +1, like for example strength 7 versus strength 3, you get to roll 3 dice. But you know, I've seen it happen where you roll 3 dice and all 3 of them are, you know, attacker knocks himself down, which again, very rare, but it happens. And I apparently let him get the ball. But luckily I have some guys over there surrounding Aklak the cannon on my death roller. Oh, and it looks like he's trying to go for it and knocks himself over. So again, you do not want to go for it. But he kind of had to there because I was just going to surround him with my dwarves who weren't being blocked by anyone. The thing is, if there's an enemy standing right beside you, you usually can't run away. Again, there are certain guys like goblins and skinks and hobbits, or halflings, as they're called for copyright reasons, who are good at running away, but not dwarves. Because it's basically you roll a 6-sided die, and if you're less than your agility, you, or maybe it's less than or equal to, you fail to escape. The guy who's trying to run away gets knocked over by whoever's standing next to him, and you automatically get a turnover, and turn goes to the next player. So it's usually not a good idea to just try to move when there's an enemy right beside you. But as you see, most of my guys don't have enemies beside them, except for, you know, my Slayer up there in the corner and my 3 guys who are surrounding the troll.
The culprit. She had a total of 120 KOs during his career. Shame she disappeared during a match against the Lowdown Rats when she tried to spike the troll.
May she rest in peace.
And another important thing to remember, the first couple times I played, I thought it was all about, you know, fighting, because I was used to normal Warhammer, which is all about, you know, killing each other's armies. But remember, it's all about the ball. So even if you're like, even if it's kind of a long shot that you'll get the ball, as you see, I think I had to go for it there. And it might be much easier to just throw a block at someone. If there's a chance that it'll end your turn, don't do it before you try to get the ball, you know? Even if the ball's a slightly longer shot, it's usually a good idea to just go for the ball, because if you get bad luck and it ends your turn, then the enemy, like, you know, right now, I'm in a pretty good position. All of his guys who are alive are on his end zone, or in his half.
Can't say much about that.
But,
Full-blooded, but
you know,
perfectly legal.
and also this time I should have moved my dwarves who weren't really doing anything. I could have had them go and maneuver around without worrying about a turnover, because most of them weren't being in anyone's tackle zones, is what it's called when you're near an enemy.
One of Blood Bowl's favorite killers, Noble Black, who after 8 great seasons
And my Slayer knocks himself out. Gamebryo troll. As I mentioned earlier, with some of my teams I named like every single guy. You'll see that with Fenrir's Wolfpaws. But this one I mostly just used the names that were randomly generated for the players and just added a last name. Because some of them had last names and some of them didn't. So, I mean, one of my guys is named Rag the Oarsman, which I think I was subconsciously and accidentally stealing it from Brag the Gutsman, who's an ogre special character in Warhammer. And as I said, I started playing ogres in Blood Bowl. So I was probably had that on my mind. But he's an oarsman because we're named after a group of pirates. And actually, in my team description, I made a big joke about that, because the Slayer Pirates were a unit you could get in the Dogs of War army, which is just an army of mercenaries who I actually really liked, because you could actually take units from them as mercenaries in any other army, and it added a lot of versatility. And also they had their regiments of renown, which were all very colorful, storied mercenary companies, like the aforementioned Slayer Pirates, you know, Dwarven Pirates. Their leader, Longdrang the Slayer, Longdrang Silver probably, actually had a special rule, something along the lines of like infinite pistols, because he has so many belts with pistols on him, so that he never has to reload. He just, you know, pulls 2 out, shoots them, drops them, pulls 2 more.
Who could forget the infamous 24
And dwarf slayers are normally dwarves who are dishonored in some way, and then they make an oath to basically make up for whatever they did by going and whatever their failure is, by going and killing monsters until one of them kills him in return, and you know, that way they make up for their lost honor by dying for it, and hopefully killing lots of monsters along the way. And you know, the greatest of these are, you know, great dragon slayers. But you know, Longdrang, him and his band of slayers take to the high seas and act as mercenaries for hire and pirates, and probably also slay a goodly number of sea monsters along the way. Now here again, I'm making that mistake of not moving my guys first, it looks like. Or no, I might be wising up. But yeah, again, move your guys who won't cause a turnover before you start an attack. And I'm not doing that, but hopefully it ends alright. Okay, and here, I didn't read through all the rules, but goblins have the dodge skill, which means if you select the Defender's Stumbles die when you're attacking them, it just moves them. Normally Defender's Stumbles knocks them down. So if I've been paying attention there, I actually had a, you know, Defender Knockdown die, which dodge does not protect you against. And I should have selected that, but I didn't know that dodge made you immune to stumbles. And I actually at this time thought stumbles was better because it had an exclamation mark on it. I thought it was like, you know, knocked down and then they stumble as well, which is even worse than just being knocked down or something. I don't know. And I have no idea why I just... Oh, I probably pushed him because this way I push him off the pitch. And then, yeah, he gets attacked by the fans and the spectators. Anyway, so as I was saying, so Dogs of War, which is what the Long-Drunk Slayer Pirates come from, as well as other interesting mercenary groups like the Richter Kruger's Cursed Company, which is a man who is cursed with undeath, and then everyone he kills come back to join him in undeath. And he has undead of like every single race, so you know, undead dwarves, undead orcs. He has like, you know, skeleton lizard men on it in his unit, and I find that really cool and flavorful, because usually if you're thinking undead, you know, it's usually just human skeletons, and that's really all they have to this day with the line of Warhammer miniatures. But I like that they kind of added that, and it's also, it has an in-game effect, which is every time you kill someone, you know, you get another skeleton joining your unit. Anyways, the Dogs of War are no longer an officially supported army by Games Workshop, the people who make Warhammer. So basically, you know, they don't exist anymore. I mean, I think they sell a couple of the old models as collector's items, but you know, they don't release rules for them in this edition, and they haven't for several editions. And part of the reason was because, as I said, you can take those guys in any army, so it kind of basically made it so... and here I knocked myself out again, despite having, I think, equal strength with my dudes helping me. Again, equal just means you get to choose the die. If you have one less strength than the enemy, they get to choose the die, and if you have, I think, 2 less than them, they get... when you attack them, they roll 2 dice and get to choose which one the attacker uses. So, you know, they can, you know, you might get one of them rolls, I knock you down, and the other one rolls, I knock myself down, and they'll just let you choose that one and knock myself down. And again, if you have way low strength, like I think if they have, you know, double +1 strength over you or whatever, they get to roll 3 dice when you attack them, or throw a block at them again, even though it's really you making an offensive maneuver. And there we see the usefulness of dodge, because I think at, you know, obviously at least one, but maybe even 2 of the faces of the die they roll are both people get knocked down. Dwarves don't have to worry about that. Even if the enemy's attacking them, both knocked down, just the attacker gets knocked down.
Blood Bowl is reputedly the toughest of all sports.
So they say.
And I'm running up the ball. But anyways, yes, so the Dogs of War no longer exist in Warhammer. So I made a whole joke about that when I wrote this team's bio, about how these Slayer pirates had been, you know, soldiers of fortune for years, sailing the seas and fighting pirates, but, or you know, fighting for whatever army hired them. But for some reason, no one's hiring them anymore. It's almost as if the place they came from, the Thalia and Estalia, which is basically Italy, Renaissance era Italy and Spain. That's where the Dogs of War come from, because they were famous for their mercenary companies during that time period. Anyway, so it's almost as if Thalia and Estalia don't even exist anymore. Like, you know, no one's hiring them. No one will let them join their armies for some reason. It's so strange. So they decided to go have a game of Blood Bowl and earn money that way. You know, beat up some goblins on the playing field and toss around some balls instead of shooting cannonballs, and win great golden glory from that, because, you know, no one's hiring them to fight battles anymore. And both down, and I don't care. Thanks to block. As you see, I'm going over it there, mousing over it. Yeah, you really have to read all the rules, and I mean, they probably come with some sort of in-game manual or rule book, but I have personally not found one. I haven't been looking that hard, because I mostly just learned by playing. And again, if you saw there, I could have just knocked him down if I didn't realize how dodge worked.
just to see how well
Sorry,
Wizards stood
I
up
said
to
that wrong.
mad charge
If
of
I
Raven.
had read how dodge worked,
The noise
I could have
made the
knocked him
red
down there. Instead, I just
fall
pushed him back.
by the
So now he's free to act on his turn.
snap of a wizard's neck.
And yeah, usually I follow the enemy when I knock them back, just because it's good to keep guys up next to them, so that if they want to do something, they have to dodge. But sometimes you don't want them near you, for whatever reason, or you want to stay in place to help support another guy. Like if you're all in a line, at the line of scrimmage, trying to push forward. You might not want to push past to where you're surrounded by enemies. You want to stay where you are to help support your friend who's about to throw another block. And again, fail to read how dodge works.
Wow, I can tell you.
However, this guy
straight
has the
up
tackle skill, which allows you to ignore their dodge skill. So all's well that ends well. And the troll, I think, is suffering from stupidity right now. Each turn it has a chance to just sit there and pick its nose. And when it's doing that, it doesn't have any tackle zones, so I can freely run away from it without it getting a free tackle on me. See? Of course, I'm going for it, which is dangerous in and of itself, but again, all's well that ends well.
Thrown into rubbish containers.
It's the only way to end a downward spiral.
You know, it's kind of like what they say about art. It's good to go back to your early stuff just to see how much you've improved. Because I'm noticing all the mistakes I made in this game, and it's good that I'm at least learning from them. Anyways, you see the guys there with the bell ringing above their head? That means they're knocked out, but not seriously wounded. So at the end of the drive, again, it's the roll of the dice. There's a chance that they come back and get back on the playing field. Whereas if you're badly wounded, you go in a different section. You have a red cross flashing above you. Let's see. Yep, see, there's one there. A skull in that guy's case because the Goblin Fanatic, unfortunately, again, died in his first match. But with those guys, you miss the rest of the entire game, and furthermore, you might get other effects based on, again, on the roll of the die, or, yeah, I think it's when you knock them over, you roll an injury roll or something, and that shows how injured they are. If it's just quote-unquote badly injured, then they just miss this game. But, you know, there's worse ones, such as death, and, you know, missing future games, or getting a permanent penalty to one of your stats. So, you know, as you see on the troll there, Edford or something is his name. It's hard to read because the quality of this video isn't very good, even though it took up about 60 gigs or so, which is one of the reasons I'm not going to have a lot of my second season games, just because I didn't have room for more 60 gig videos on my computer. So the first couple of games of the second season I've already played and, you know, haven't recorded them because I didn't have room. Anyways, okay, now we're on to Virili Zaitsev. Virili was the random name there, and I named him after Vasily Zaitsev, which is a famous, he was the protagonist from Enemy at the Gates. He was a famous real-life Russian sniper, although many of his deeds may have been exaggerated by the Russian propaganda to sort of inspire the troops during the Battle of Stalingrad. But in any case, he was a very good sniper, poor peasant boy from the Urals. His last name means rabbit, I think, and then he trained a group of snipers who, when their name was translated from Russian, basically meant, you know, young rabbits. And they were basically a crack team of snipers who helped the Russians win the Battle of Stalingrad and turn the tide in World War II. But yes, as I was saying, each person has stats on their screen there. MA is movement allowance, which is how many squares you can move. Again, you can choose to go for it and move one or two more, but for each extra square you move, you roll a 6-sided die, and on a 1, you fall over and your turn ends, and everyone is sad and cries bitter tears of disappointment. Strength is again used for blocking people. Agility is used for dodging blocks. So, again, if there's an enemy adjacent to you and you try to move, the enemy you basically roll a die, and if you roll higher than your agility value,
What do you expect?
you get knocked over and your turn ends and everyone hates you. And your fans throw hamburgers at you. And then AV at the bottom is armor value. Eye Stench, that's a good name for a troll. Loftrek Beer Swiller. Yeah, Aklak the Cannon, I think I gave him his own name. But even then that was oh, and that's why you don't go for it, folks. Knock yourself over. Yeah, and what I didn't realize is that blocking someone, you have to go into their square. Not, like, going right before him. Like, where I actually fell over wasn't technically going for it. But I tried to block him, and since he was one square further, blocking him, I didn't realize this at the time, or else I wouldn't have gone for it. As you see, I'm typing like, what just happened? And so, didn't realize that, but because you have the opportunity to follow them after you push them or knock them over, it's considered, just trying to block them is considered moving into the square that they're in, and you have to be able to move that far or else it's considered going for it.
A recent medical report stated that cerebral hemorrhages were
Anyways,
less
agility also
frequent
helps
than
with
blood
passing, but despite the fact that the team is called Long Drong Slayer
You consider that
Passers,
brains are also less frequent.
we don't do a lot of that passing. Because we all have terrible agility as dwarves. We're just cube-shaped mounds of muscle. And that troll just tried to run away, and he only had, I think, 1 agility, so on anything but a 1 rolled on the d6, he would be knocked over. So that was kind of a stupid move on his part. Though again, at this point, neither of us really knew how to play. Apparently, speaking of Aklak the Cannon and passing dwarves, apparently in the actual version of, the miniature version of Blood Bowl, there's rules for getting a dwarven bazooka, as dwarves are master gunsmiths. And again, this troll was stupid there, so he couldn't knock me over. But yeah, there's rules for getting a dwarven bazooka that can just launch the Blood Bowl ball, you know, across the field. But it's not in this game, for whatever reason. Also, there are some other teams. I am, of course, a devout follower of Hashut, Father of Darkness, so I wanted to make a Chaos Dwarf team, but that's only available in Blood Bowl Chaos Edition, which is sort of the expansion that comes after this. And first of all, it costs an additional like 15-20 bucks on its own. And secondly, I don't think I'd be able to play with any of these guys if I was using the expansion and they weren't. So, you know, no point in throwing all that money away just to have no one to play with. So, I chose the good old normal dwarves, and I am a huge fan of the Dwarven Slayers as well. And yeah, I'm basically talking through this whole thing because my friend Eric, the one who kicked my butt when I was playing as Grubluggers, he already posted a couple of his games, and they're just really boring to watch without any commentary. Maybe it's even worse with commentary, but I figured I'd give it a shot. And there again, I think I forgot. I hadn't yet read what the block rule did, because again, this was kind of my first game with dwarves. Only like my 3rd game ever. And, yeah, I could have knocked him over if I hit both down, which would have been better than just moving him a square. Sometimes it's better to move them rather than knock them down, if you want to position them in a specific place. Or, you know, push them away and, I don't know.
Did you hear about the Evil Gits? The team that is made up of a mix of evil players?
Their fans won the Most Evil Supporters of the Year award. Fully merited from what I've seen.
And again, had not read Dodge. Could have done so much better. And that's what makes this kind of even worse. The fact that I crippled his team with a couple of lucky rolls early on, and I wasn't even playing in top form. It's possible the Goblins are just a terrible team, and I don't think I'd really debate that, because as I said, you know, half their players, if you use the special weapons, half your players get kicked off the pitch at the end of the round. If you don't, then everyone's better at fighting than you, with the exception of your 2 trolls. And although you are very good at dodging, so you can just grab the ball and just run past people into their end zone, no matter how many blockers they have there. That doesn't seem to be what Brooke's going for. And unfortunately, he just knocked over his own troll with his own bomb. So. And touchdown! And it's halftime. Touchdown just in time. Yes, I think there are different ways to play, but the default way and the way we play in our Thundercup League is, as I mentioned before, those are my 2 guys who were knocked out get back up because they weren't badly wounded, whereas that guy with the red cross over him, I don't think he has any permanent injury, but he has to miss the rest of the game. But the other guy gets up.
We're about to get started.
Where was I? Yes, as I was saying, there's 16 turns for each player. After 8 turns, halftime, and it doesn't matter if you're right before the end zone or what. Just everyone resets, goes back to the line of scrimmage or wherever you decide to line up your guys, and you have to start over. So that's actually a common dwarf tactic. Is if you're ahead, just make a line of dwarves and kill time until either halftime comes or the game ends, and just win 1-0 kind of. But I'm usually I try to get more goals than that. Even though dwarves aren't very good, very fast runners for the most part, I still like it. After all, it's no fun for everyone if you're just trying to hold the status quo. We need blood for the Blood Bowl. And in fact, that was the Ludgrub's Grubluggers. That was part of the story behind them. Oh, and don't worry, I don't think I have any real plan with how I'm placing them, because at this point I didn't really understand the strategy behind it. I guess usually you want to place a couple people, you want to get whoever you want to run with the ball, in this case the runners, or whoever your star player is, so you can get star player points by getting a touchdown. You want to put them further back, so that if they kick the ball further back, which they likely will, you can grab it with those guys. Especially when you have a slow team like Dwarves, where you can't just run there with your, speed 8 werewolf. But yeah, probably if I did things today, as I said, I wouldn't line up everyone against those trolls. I'd just take it as a lost cause, put some cheap player who I don't care about to just keep them from running or make them use up their turns, wasting it on him, pounding him into the ground. And I'd have my slayers or my better warriors on the side to flank their goblins. And that's the thing. If you have a good warrior attack from the side, you can just basically run down the entire side of their line. Like, if I had the Death Roller still, which of course I don't because it was an illegal weapon and it's halftime. And then I could just basically roll down their line, one guy at a time. And, continually be supporting the guys who are near him. And again, I'm not really doing it right. I should probably have moved people to the ball before blocking this guy. And I should have read my rules so that I could, knock him down rather than just push him back. But, again, the game's already in my favor. And that's how you learn, folks. You try different things. Don't know how it'll happen. Trial and error. But yeah, as I was saying though, Ludgrub's Grubluggers, the story behind them was that in the Warhammer universe, ogres are they are basically cursed with this eternal hunger that gnaws at them from within, and they actually worship a deity called the Great Maw, which is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a according to their myth, this meteor fell from the sky, and when it landed, it destroyed all their culture and made them revert to the barbaric cavemen that they are today. And it cursed them with the eternal hunger. And when they went to the site where the meteor fell, they saw this maw stretching deep into the earth. Whether this was a crater or some godly being, well, the evidence of the in-game world suggests that it's more of a godly being, a flesh-lined gullet covered in teeth that could... hold on a sec, I just got to plug in my computer. Anyways, a flesh-lined gullet lined with innumerable teeth, row after row, going down and down it until it emerged back out the other side of the world as a great whirlpool in the ocean. And as I said, within this game world, people can't go near the Great Maw or its desert because, much like the aforementioned Chaos Rift at the North Pole, where and the South Pole, where the warriors of chaos get mutated into twisted demon worshippers with, extra arms and claws and stuff. The Great Maw warps all who come near it. And one of the things I liked about the old Ogre book, though, was that they had a lot of things where it made you wonder whether the ogres were actually, knew about magic stuff, because there is obviously magic in the world. You can summon demons and shoot bolts of lightning and stuff. But a lot of it was, they brought up the fact that it might have just been superstition from primitive people. So, for example, they had this mountain that they believed was alive because it, anyone who climbed it would die, and then it always made avalanches and stuff, so they would offer sacrifices to it or whatever. And then, some scholars from the human empires came and just realized the mountain wasn't alive. It was just causing lots of avalanches because of its specific shape made it, an avalanche-causing mountain or whatever. Just the shape of it was not good. Anyways, whereas in the more recent edition of the Ogre rulebook for the most recent edition of Warhammer, 8th edition I think, they actually say, yes, the mountain is alive, and it sometimes gets up and walks around and crushes things. And I'm like, okay, that's a bit, I think I preferred the original Ogre book. For a lot of reasons, I preferred the lore in it, but anyways, and that was another one, was with the Great Maw, yes, it mutates things, but they mentioned that, lead could block its dangerous rays of mutation. So it made me wonder if that meteor that, cursed them with sickness was not just radioactive, as opposed to being some magical god fallen to the earth, As, in real life you can use lead plating and lead aprons to block actual radiation from mutating you and causing sickness. But yes, the story with the ogres, because, they worship the Great Maw and they're all, they're eternally hungry. I basically had the story behind Ludgrub's Grubluggers be that they were so, they were even less intelligent than normal ogres, so when they heard about a blood bowl, they thought it was literally a bowl filled with blood, and they were like, I'm hungry, let's go there. So, Ludgrub brought his whole rock skull tribe, very thick-skulled but dim-witted ogres, down to the Blood Bowl pitch, and they were like, we want the Blood Bowl, and they're like, this is Blood Bowl, and they didn't understand, so they got mad and they started killing the players and eating them. And this halfling was in the crowd who owned several teams, and he was like, these guys are awesome, they tear apart other players and eat them. Imagine if they were working for me, they would win every game they played. no one would stand against them. Or if they did stand against them, you know, they'd get eaten. So, and then he hired them and was like, I'll tell you what, I'll give you bowls full of blood if you eat these people for me. And they're like, wait a minute, you're going to give us food to eat people? That's like double bonus.
Who?
A goblin who played only one season.
Can you believe
30 fumbles in a season, averaging more than 2 per match, including a record 9 fumbles in his last match.
Yes. Another thing I like is that in order to distinguish them from humans or orcs, because, you know, orcs and ogres are basically both described as big, brutish humans, right? But in the Warhammer world, you know, humans have normal human skin tones and all the various ranges they have, and orcs have green skin tones and various different shadings and variations. You know, some are more like a sandy, yellowy green, some are, like, the most powerful ones are called black orcs, and they're a very dark green color. But, you know, basically the thing is, if you made them very brutish and, you know, bestial, the ogres would look like orcs. And if you made them just look like big humans, they'd just look like humans, you know. So one of the things they did in the old ogre book was they set about trying to differentiate the ogres from every other race and team in the Warhammer world. They made their skin a sort of pallid, sickly grayish cast, made them all sort of sweaty and sick. They made them look sort of Mongolian, which was funny because at the time there were, you know, they didn't have any.
right in the face?
It was basically assumed that there was nothing that no horse could bear their weight because they were so massive they'd just break its spine. But whereas the Mongols historically were, you know, renowned and basically took over the world because they had all the horses and they were all trained from birth to ride on horseback. Anyways, so, but in addition to that, you know, they gave them this very unique coloring to their skin, and you know, they instead of giving them the whole boar tusks that orcs have, they just had, you know, sort of different teeth. Again, it wasn't orc, it wasn't human, it was sort of its own thing. But now in this edition, when they re-released the rule book and all the ogre models, the way they, and of course you're free to paint them any way you want, but the way they show them, the way the you know, Games Workshop paints them, and the way they show it in the rule book is they're painted with just normal human skin tones, which is again, it's disappointing because they put all that effort into making them look different, and then they decided, now let's just go back to the classic ogres, which are humans. They're basically just orcs with boar tusks and human skin tones, and that too, the new ogres have the boar tusks like orcs, so really they're not that different. And also they used to have a lot more emphasis on the Noblars, who are these tiny little goblins who helped the ogres, but since there's already a goblin team, I guess it does make sense to be like, this is the ogre team, it's not the goblin team, let's have it be about ogres and not goblins. And it looks like I'm going for it. And I make it.
First appearance dates back to 2465 in a match between the giants and low-down rats.
No, I didn't. You know, me and the dwarves,
A blitzer called Stout Iron Fist was given the task of protecting the king's son. However, the rats managed to blindside him, and by the time he was able to clear his eyes, the king's son had been killed by the rat's troll. Stout, of course, flew into a frenzy and decapitated the
unfortunately, you can only have certain numbers of each player type on each team in Blood Bowl, so, you know, the Long-Drong Slayer Pirates, they're all Slayers, and also all have guns, which, of course, you can't get in this version of Blood Bowl. But you're only allowed to have 2 Slayers on your team in Blood Bowl, so unfortunately most of the others are, you know, the Oarsmen and the Cabin Boys and, you know, Slayers in training who have not yet earned the badassery of being a full-on Slayer pirate, I guess. Or just Slayers who aren't as good as the 2 Slayers that are actually called Slayers on the team. And also, you have to have exactly 11 players on the pitch. I think you can get fewer if during the match, you know, some of them get knocked out or badly wounded. But you have to have at least 11 people on your team. And if you have more than 11 people on your team, only 11 can be on the pitch at one time, which is kind of unfortunate, because that's one of the ways they balance things in the Warhammer Fantasy game, where you have the armies fighting each other, is, you know, you have shoddier units, like, for example, the tiny lizard men known as skinks. You can have, like, tons of them, like hundreds and hundreds, or same with, again, the Noblars for the Ogre Kingdom's army, or the Goblins. You just have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of them, and you just overwhelm them through superiority in numbers, even though on a one-to-one basis, you know, that ogre will just step on you and smush you. But, you know, you have way many more guys than they have ogres, so eventually you might win. You know, they balance it that way. Whereas in this, it's always 11 people. So they actually have a halfling team, which is hobbits, which are just very terrible. And they throw in some other stuff to balance it, but I'm like, they should have just had it be that there were more halflings. More than 11 allowed on a time. That should be in their special rules, so they could, you know, swarm them. Although I guess it's less useful in this, because even if you have 1 million people, if you fuck up on your very first move, you get a turnover, and it goes to the next guy anyways. But considering how many halflings die, I mean, I've had games where there's only like 2 or 3 players left on the enemy team by the end of the game.
This player has opened the slapping box.
I think I've had friends who've had games where the enemies just forfeited because they've pretty much run out of almost all their players. Skarrak Sea Scourge. Again, I gave them their last names to try to make them sound, well, to add more character and individuality, but also to make them sound like pirates. And you'll note Long Drong himself is not on this team. Normally, normally for my teams, yeah, I make it. Normally for my teams, I include the eponymous coach in the team as the star player. So Ludgrub's ogres were led by Ludgrub Rockskull. And Fenrir's Wolfpaws are led by Fenrir, whose last name escapes me, but I kind of want to say Wolfpaw, but that sounds like a very stupid last name. Anyways, the thing is, though, Long Drong himself is missing, like, he's missing a hand, he just has a hook, which wouldn't be very good at holding balls, and he's missing a leg, he just has a peg leg or you know, something, so he can't run. And I figured he actually wouldn't do well on a Blood Bowl field. He can do just fine when he has unlimited pistols and is allowed to shoot people in the face. But as far as picking up balls, when he's, you know, missing, when one hand has a gun in it and the other hand is missing, it's not going to work so well. So I figured he's just going to send his slayers and just tell them what to do, order them around. Yes. The ways they sort of balance halflings in the game, much like for, you know, I think for the next video I'm going to try and edit it down a bit, you know, fast forward through some parts or just skip through parts where there is an action going on, because these games are about an hour each time, and I don't think the average person wants to sit through an hour of just watching a game that they're not playing and, you know, listening to a commenter they don't know talk. So hopefully I'm doing my best to entertain you. Anyways, as you saw there, I got a turnover for stomping on a guy who was already down. Or, you know, it's called a foul. There's actually a fairly good chance, even if you don't bribe the ref, that they just won't see the foul or just won't call it. So it's not always a risky move. You don't always get a turnover for doing it, but it is risky, actually. Just sometimes the risk pays off. And what it does is it lets you re-roll to injure them. So if I had, I think the way injury works is you roll 2 dice, and if you get higher than their armor value, you roll again to see if you injure them, or whatever. So it lets you roll to see if you overcome their armor. And if you do, you know, they're either knocked out, badly injured, or, you know, one of the slew of other injuries, such as, you know, gouged eye, which I think is permanent -1 agility, or, you know, broken leg, which is permanent -1 movement. And now I have 2 guys in the penalty box. Oh, and even with a reroll, he knocks himself out. That's sad. That is unfortunate. Again, those things happen. Sometimes you'll have like 2 or 3 dice. All of them are you knock yourself down, you reroll. Again, they're all knock yourself down. And touchdown! That's one of my runners, I'm pretty sure.
Looks like they decided to step up again.
And my knocked out guy gets back up. I think in Season 1 we didn't have a lot of the other special things, like, you know, their kickoff events, they're like random, you roll on the dice to see for the weather and stuff. I'm not sure, we might have had weather in this, but I know in at least a couple of my games I had one of the weather you can roll is heat wave, so after each drive you roll to see if your guys just pass out from the heat. I remember one time, like, you know, my guy delivered the ball and then promptly fell over, and then like half my team fell over, and I was like, well then, at least you gave it your all. Now that I'm kicking off, I don't really need to leave my guys back. I probably should have left 1 or 2 not directly on the line of scrimmage, just so that, you know, depending on what he does, I won't have everyone, you know, next to an enemy. Because this way he can just put all his guys on the line of scrimmage, and then all my guys, you know, either have to fight or just fall over when they try to dodge by running away. So it's usually good to leave a couple guys, even just like 1 square back. Although the downside is that because you can't move and attack unless you blitz, and only 1 guy on your team can blitz at once, you know, that he could just, you know, hold back as well. And then in this case, dwarves are the superior fighters by far, so you want to engage them. And if you can only engage 1 guy because, you know, and you have 5 other guys who are sitting back who can't engage because you already used your blitz, then it's not good.
The ball goes
I think I was going for a field goal here, which apparently you can't actually do in this game. There is no field goal. Like, if you land the ball in their end zone, don't get a goal. The ball's just sitting there. I've done it once or twice.
Reminds me of the 1496 Lowdown Rats. That year, they trained with a giant black war wolf.
Oh, yeah, the wolf ate 6 players and then ran away into the swamps with the only ball they had.
Some teams have no luck.
But yeah, if you see my guys on the right there, can't attack unless they blitz, but they can just move beside his guys and try to block them. But all of his guys have the dodge rule, which means if they fail to move past you, and, you know, normally it's an auto, you're knocked over and your turn's over. Oh no! The troll badly hurt my dude, and he got 2 star player points. Star player points in this are basically experience, it's how you level up. After 6 points, you get either a special ability or one of your ability scores increases, the latter being somewhat rare. And then, you know, it goes up, I think it's another, like, 10 to get to level 3, then another, like, 18 to get to level 4, another, like, 20 to whatever. It goes up exponentially. Just to stop, you know, 1 guy from having all the skills and all the stats. But yeah, you usually if you have, I kind of do it backwards. I'm like, I like this guy. This is my star player. I'm going to make him get the ball and get all the star player points. You get 3 every time you get a goal, and you get 2 if you injure someone. And then I think if you perfectly catch something, like, you can get 1, but I don't really know how that works. I don't know if it's the guy who throws it or the guy who catches it or whatever, or if it's like, you know, if you recover a failed throw, or if you catch a normal throw, which shouldn't really give you 1 because it's, you know, they threw it properly. You're just doing your job.
Strategic play on the pitch.
It's probably a good thing we don't see them.
But yes, as I said, dodge lets you re-roll your get past people roll, your dodge roll. Although it's worth noting that you can only do 1 re-roll a turn, even if, like, you had, like, right now we're both out of team re-rolls, 0 to 1 for me, 0 to 3 for just sneaking wounds. But say your guy dodges, and uses up a reroll that way, and then later you try something else and want to reroll, you can't. You already used up your reroll for a dodge. Even though it didn't take it away from your number of team rerolls, it does take it away from your 1 per turn limit. So that's something you want to watch out for as well. Like sometimes, and that stuff, it just uses it automatically. Like, you know, if you try to dodge past someone and fail, it will roll the dodge automatically, which makes sense because if you don't roll it, your turn's over anyways, so it doesn't matter that it takes it away from the 1 per turn limit. But sometimes you'll just not even notice that it did the automatic dodge roll, and then you'll be like, I'm going to try this risky maneuver because I have a reroll, and then it turns out you don't have a reroll because you already dodged or, you know, whatever, used some other reroll automatically earlier in the game, earlier in the turn. Other skills are like Surefoot or Sure-footed or whatever, Sure Feet. Lets you reroll your Go For It roll, which luckily I didn't need to reroll there because that guy did not knock himself over. And then other skills like Block. You can get Block as a skill. It's sort of the racial trait that most dwarves start with, except for I think the runners. But other people can get it by leveling up. And goblins, halflings, and skinks, and tiny creatures like them all have, in addition to, well, I'm not sure if halflings have dodge, but in addition to most of them have dodge, they also have this stunty skill, which is they're basically so small that they're hard to hit. So they get another bonus on dodging or something. So they get a bonus, and even if they fail, they get a reroll. So you don't usually have to worry about it too much with goblins and all that. And wood elves, too. They're the dodgiest of the bunch. Because it's an agility check, you know, you roll a die, and if it's less than or equal to your agility, you pass. But wood elves have, like, I think the highest agility of any team, and of course can get higher by leveling up. And they all, maybe not all of them, but a good number of them have dodge as well, so they can just run around you in circles, and you're like, but, no, I'm standing beside you, you shouldn't be able to move. And they're like, no, I don't care. Though, like all things, there is a risk inherent in that. Just because there's not a good chance of it happening doesn't mean there's no chance of it happening, and there have been plenty of times where I've seen a Wood Elf player just start off their turn by being like, well, I'll run this guy over here to pick up the ball. Oh, he gets knocked down when he tries to dodge past your guy. And my turn is over.
And all the players on the team are then sent to find him. The first one to the beer is named Runner. That's what happens when a pro crosses an amateur.
Yes, splotch.
But yeah, you can, in this game, you can allocate team funds. Like, the bulk majority of them will be spent buying players and rerolls. Rerolls, I think, cost like 100,000. No, I think they're like 75,000 before the start of the league, and then once you get into the season, it costs double because, you know, it's, I guess the reasoning would be that you don't really have time to, you know, spend all summer practicing to hone your skills between each game. Whereas, you know, you have all of off-season to do it, and I think the gameplay balancing element is really the reason they do it, which is, you know, it would just be, you know, if someone buys rerolls at the start, then wins, then he can just buy more rerolls and just have unlimited rerolls, basically, one every turn, and he'd just keep on winning or something. Not that that really helps people who bought stuff other than rerolls, but, you know, I'm sure there's, you know, I'm gonna level with you. I'm really a novice when it comes to game design and balancing, so I wouldn't know how that helps balance things. Ooh. Yeah, I think a failed throw also gives you a turnover.
Fully merited from what I've seen.
Where was I? Oh, and normally picking up the ball is, I think, 4+. It's 5+ because there's an enemy beside it. If you have a friend beside the ball, it goes down 1 to 3+. And I guess it uses the worst of those values because right now there's a friend and an enemy beside it. Or maybe it's just who has more, because right now, you know, if either of those dwarves beside it were to pick it up, there would be 1 friend and 2 enemies, which is a net of -1, you know? Again, even after playing it for a long time, I'm not 100% sure how this works because I haven't read a rule book. It's mostly just experimentation, trial and error, and, you know, pray for the best. And for some reason I tried to attack him even though he got the right to choose because he had more strength than me. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yes, it's a great spectacle, Bob.
Oh, I already have 2 goals. Anyways, as I was saying though, you can buy other things other than rerolls and players. Mostly you want players because you need 11 and the better players cost more money. You know, there are some teams where with the starting gold you have to make a team, you can't get like a roster of the best players. Usually you can. Usually it's like you can get the best 11 that they have. Like for example, in this you can have, I think, with the dwarves you can have unlimited blockers, but you can only have 2 slayers, only have 2 runners, only have 2 blitzers. So, you know, I think with the starting gold there's enough that you can have, you know, you can take all of your good players and then still have enough gold left over for enough blockers to fill out the, make it a full 11, right? I think 5 blockers, or 4 in my case because I also got the secret weapon. There are some teams where you actually can't get all the good players. You're going to have to like pick and choose. Do you want to have, you know, the werewolf or do you want to have the white? Actually, I think that's a bad example. I think necromantic you can have all the werewolves. You can have both werewolves, both whites, both ghouls, and still have enough left over for, you know, the minimum number of zombies to have the minimum number of players, which of course isn't good if they kill a player or if one gets knocked out. Because, you know, then if you only have 11 and they kill one, then you're down to 10. If you have extras, then when they knock one out, I think as soon as the next drive starts or halftime starts, one of your extra players can run in. But I prefer to run a lean team of 11 and just, you know, try not to die in the first place. Not sure why I didn't throw the ball to that guy. Maybe I couldn't. Wasn't really paying attention.
Did you know that dwarf runners are trained in the same way as city watchdogs?
Anyways, the game's pretty much winding down. I'm basically going for a long shot.
And all the players on the team,
I guess I could pass it off to that guy, would be smart. Because then they have less of a chance of intercepting, I guess, because there's no guy right beside me. Maybe it makes it easier to throw. Anyways, yeah, I'm basically just trying to get an extra point for the extra star player points, and also because it's a tournament, you know, you want to win by a lot of points so that you're better than whoever else wins his first game. Gives you a better overall rating. And similarly, although it might seem cruel, sometimes at the end of the game, if there's no chance of getting a goal, you might want to just try to foul on all their players who are down, and I don't make the catch, which is unfortunate. Because, you know, that last turn goal would have been, you know, very epic, especially for a dwarf team, because as I said, they run so slow and they can't pass because they're not very agile. So, you know, really, again, usually for them it's get 1 or 2 goals and then just stop the enemy from getting any more. Just make a line, fight a war of attrition. You're so good at blocking that, you know, you're not going to knock yourself over, you're just going to knock them over, and you can just stand there. Whereas, you know, with my werewolf team, I was fighting halflings, of course, but I once got, I think, 6 or 8 goals. Probably 6. 8 sounds like too many. But yeah, I think it was 6 goals. And I also got 1,000,000 star player points because my werewolves tore apart the halflings. So that was very good. Unfortunately, I do not have a record of that because after that game I played another game without saving, and in that other game my computer ended up getting knocked off. I was playing it on a bunk bed, and my computer ended up getting knocked off the bed and the battery came out, so I kind of lost all my progress. And I did end up beating those halflings again when I replayed. This was in a single player thing, so it wasn't like, you know, in a league game, if you lose your progress, I think it's considered forfeiting the game if you just log off. so you don't get to replay it. But anyways, in this one, because I hadn't saved, I loaded my save game because it was a single-player campaign. I beat the halflings again, but I didn't beat them nearly as well. I mean, I only injured a couple of them. I only got maybe like 3 or 4 goals. It was really disappointing because that was, you know, my best game to date, and then didn't save because I didn't save.
If you're telling me, it'll take a while to get
And that is the game. That is the end of Game 1 of the Knights of the Square Table Thundercup League. Season 1.
If those big brutes have any intelligence, they'll learn from this defeat.
And I get winning money, which I can spend, as I was sort of mentioning earlier, on things like cheerleaders and, you know, new players if one of yours died. Unfortunately, I don't know if Brooke ever recovered from... In fact, I can tell you, he did not win the league, and I'm not trying to take credit. I kind of feel bad for this now because he got screwed from the very start, but, you know, part of the reason was because I took out his best and most expensive player before he even, you know, got off to a start.
What is this sport coming to?
Well, the league's been
Alright, folks, that's about it for this round. If you're interested, you can follow us on http://www.squaretablegaming.com/. The link will be in the doobly-doo below, to steal a term from the Vlog Brothers. See you later.